Welcome to Permission to Kick Ass, the show that gives you a virtual seat at the bar for the real conversations that happen between entrepreneurs. I'm interviewing all kinds of business owners, from those just a few years into freelancing to CEOs helming 9-figure companies. If you've ever worried that everyone else just seems to get it and you're missing something or messing things up, this show is for you. I'm your host, Angie Coley, and let's get to it. Hey, and welcome back to Permission to Kick Ass. With me today is my new friend, Dr. Christopher Liu. Say hi.
Hey guys, I'm really happy to be on the show and I'm really excited about the conversation.
Yeah, me too. So tell us a little bit about your business. I know we got doctor in the title, but I think we might surprise some people now.
Yeah, I'm a physician by training. I did the traditional route, I followed all the rules and jumped through all the hoops and then I specialized in orthopedics. But then on the side, I was always looking for a way out. So for me, it was always passive income through real estate investing, equity investing. And so I was able to buy my financial freedom by investing my money wisely. It's 2016. I'm about 16 years in my career. And this was after the financial crisis. And I had made enough passive income, made enough money to be set. So I wanted to do something different. I turned in my keys, badge, and pager on a whim and quit on the spot and set out to become an entrepreneur. And we'll get into more of it. But now I do a lot of coaching, consulting, a lot of public speaking. And since the pandemic, my brand has evolved to more of a platform and a brand, investing a lot heavily into brand content, brand awareness through podcasts, YouTube, and partnerships, affiliates, sponsorships, and so on.
Ooh, excellent. Oh, this sounds fascinating. I love that you mentioned I, on a whim, turned in my badge, keys, and quit. Tell me more about that. Like, I have a feeling it was a little bit more than just a whim, but I do love that suddenness, that spontaneity. I'm done. Like, yeah. Tell me about it. How'd that go?
Yeah, it's very similar to what I'm experiencing like now, because I'm in Houston, right? And like the climate, with climate change, you start to feel it, right? But I started to feel the effects of just lack of job stability, really frustrated with the system, frustrated with healthcare, frustrated with just the government, the way things are running, and just no control over time, over my money, over my lifestyle. It basically is being run by bureaucrats and politicians and lawyers. It's September 2008. Lehman Brothers just collapsed. Everybody's scared, holding onto their jobs. The real estate markets crashed. And I was like, this is my chance to get out. This is my exit. This is my calling. Because if the door's open now, but if I don't walk through it, it's going to shut and you'll never have that chance again. Just fed up with the current system. And I just turned in my keys, badge, and pager. And I was like, I don't want to be a part of this system. I don't want to be part of making corporate America extremely wealthy while watching people suffer, struggle, see the poor get poorer, see the rich get richer, and just basically just the middle class shrinking. So that's that in a nutshell.
Mm-hmm. Did you know right away that you wanted to pivot toward helping people with their finances? Was that a journey? How did you arrive there?
It was actually a process. So it's actually an 8-year process. So it took me 8 years to get my financial freedom, to buy my financial freedom, to become an entrepreneur. So for the first 8 years, I was an entrepreneur. I was an investor. I invested in single family homes, learned about passive income, investing into equities, and just basically getting financially free. Once I had that footing, once I was financially free, my next goal was to retire early. And retire early meetings, I didn't have to go to a boss or go to a job. I didn't have to do any of that anymore. And so once I did that, that took me 8 years. And then I took a year off. And that year off was actually, everybody thinks you're a multimillionaire and you can travel and eat and stay in fancy places. It's really great for the first month, but for the remaining 11 months, it got really old and really boring. So I needed a purpose. And this is when physicians started coming to me, asking me how I did it. They were burned out, divorced, stressed, losing their jobs, getting ripped off, scammed by insurance companies, financial advisors. And so there was a growing need to help physicians in this area of empowerment to claim their lives back, claim their time, their money, get their lives back. So it started out, I wrote 4 books.
Wow.
Yeah, you can check it out on Amazon. And I started speaking. I started a blog. And from there, it just grew and grew to different distribution outlets. Social media was a huge part. Pandemic hit, so that helped me to transition more to video and virtual webinars, live streams. And in that's that in a nutshell as well.
Awesome. I know that we condensed, I can't math on the fly there. That's more than 12 years of goodness down into the hockey stick of growth. But I imagine it wasn't all smooth. I'm going to circle back to that in a minute because I've been writing down some notes as you were talking. I love the fact that you saw the financial downturn as an opportunity, because I think, I agree with you that most of the people were looking at what was happening with the shutdowns and panicking and desperately holding on to those jobs and accepting the facts that, okay, if I want to keep a roof over my head, then I have to do this. And that's why I love this show and being able to share stories like this. You don't have to do anything. It may feel like you have to do something, but if you're done living a certain way, working for a certain person, oh God, I can only imagine what it was like dealing with the system. I'm frustrated with the bureaucracy, not even having health insurance and you having to deal with those folks every day. So to me, that's both incredibly brave and then just betting on yourself, taking that risk, I think is really awesome. So yeah, just want to double highlight that for everybody listening. You don't have to do anything. You don't. The other thing that I thought was really cool was mentioning, okay, so I worked really hard. I did some investing. I grew my portfolio over several years. I hit my goal, right? I set a goal. I hit it. It took me a while. Then mentioning the facts that what are you going to do? Just like coast and be lazy forever? I think of this fantasy that a lot of us have in our minds that we're working really hard to where we can cross the finish line and then just be done. And guys, I have said it before. I will say it again. When you cross the finish line, that is the finish line, as in shuffled off this mortal coil, as in done with life. I don't know what happens after that. None of us do. But if we're operating under the principle of I've got this one and only precious life that I've been given, and I don't know what happens next or if I'll get another chance, don't we owe it to ourselves and to the people that we love to do everything we can to live the ever-loving shit out of this life? Right? You can't coast forever. Even if you hit your goals, there's going to be something after that forces you to get up off the couch. Maybe watch Netflix for a month and don't shower. Cool, but that's going to get old. So tell me a little bit about this journey. Like I said, we glossed over it. We went with the hockey stick growth, but I imagine that there were some fits and starts as you were growing this business. Thought it was really cool that you were doing your thing and then people came to you and started asking for help. And that was the next iteration of what you were doing with your time and your money. Tell me a little bit more about finding that opportunity, stepping into that role as the financial leader and advisor to your peers and colleagues.
Yeah. So it was really, I love it because there's been so many, it's like entrepreneurship is, everybody thinks it's this basic, it's basically this zero to hero, but it's a really lot of peaks and valleys. And this idea that everything is a destination, but talking to a lot of entrepreneurs, this destination syndrome is more ingrained by mainstream media in society. But it started in 2008. That's when I was fed up with the system. I wanted a way out, figure out a way to exist outside, independent of all of these different institutions. So it started with that. And then it was just learning how money works. What is money? What is financial? What are financial resources? Do we just hoard and accumulate it? Or do we do, what is money for? It's a currency. It's a medium of exchange. It's used to pay for goods and services to help other people. And so really popular saying is you can't take it with you.
Mm-hmm.
You have 500 million. If you die tomorrow, it's useless. So that was learning just how the monetary system works.
Can I say that is super funny? Sorry to interrupt right there, but literally, so everybody knows by now that I record multiple episodes a day, but literally on an episode that I recorded less than a couple hours ago, we said that exact same thing. You can't take it with you. Why the hell are you working this hard to hoard it like a freaking dragon when you can't take it with you? Amen. Yeah. Anyways, please continue.
Yeah. And in the meantime, it's getting inflated. It's getting taxed. The institutions, banks are taking it and lending it out 10 to 1. They're the ones that are benefiting. And you're just trading your time and hoarding and just this like scarcity. Of course, you have to save in, but you have to think of money in a different type of way. You have to think about the flow. So that was one. But just real estate in itself has so many ups and downs. You have to You have to deal with tenants, a lot of tenants, toilets, and trash is the three things that they talk about. You have to learn how to identify scams and bad actors and all of these things. Then the next thing was learning from COVID when everything shut down, business shut down, learning how to actually now my business is 100% digital and virtual. So I can do it from anywhere in the world at any time. I don't have to go to a particular spot or location. It's all dependent upon good Wi-Fi, of course, and running water and all that. But just pivoting to social media, learning how to leverage technology, Zoom, video webinars, how to develop an audience from video, and how to create community engagement from that attention as a currency, and leveraging into seminars, group coaching, social media communities, and building more brand, more relationship, more social capital, political awareness. That's kind of
Oh, I think that's really awesome. Okay, first of all, that's definitely going in the show notes, if not the actual title or like the subject line, tenants, toilets, and trash. Ah, it's so snappy. Of course, my inner copywriter is, oh, that's a hook. That's a hook. I need that. I also starred, like, I wrote it down as generosity needs to flow, but cash also needs to flow. I've talked about it on the show before with this interesting concept, and I was shut down to it for a long time. I'm actually in the Houston area right now, house sitting for a friend. And for a long time, as what I call Southern woman syndrome, I had a really hard time asking for help, let alone accepting help. And over time, I've come to realize that particular habit of mine was not as virtuous as it seemed. I was not the independent person that was doing it all on her own and damn the man. What I was doing was stopping the flow. And I was actually destroying a lot of goodwill and joy in the process. And here's what I mean by that. I am someone who gets a lot of joy from giving. I put a lot of thought into a gift that I give to someone, into the connections that I make between people, even into putting this show together, making it able so that you and I are able to talk, right? And build a connection. Put a lot of thought into that stuff. And I get a lot of joy when people write in and tell me that show was incredible. It did something awesome for me. That gift was amazing. Oh my God, I can't wait. I can't believe that you thought of me. But I love seeing that light in people's eyes. And it breaks my heart when somebody refuses that. And it never occurred to me that I was doing that to other people and refusing their generosity. And that's not to say that everybody lights up and is just like eagerly awaiting, but I know more people, birds of a feather and all of that stuff, that get a lot of joy out of giving, that are sitting there like, could you open your gift, please? Could you open? I can't stand it 1 second longer. Please open the gift. I need to see how you are going to react. I think you are going to love it. We're like, can you imagine just looking at somebody who's that excited to give you something because of the love and joy that they get from doing that, and going, I don't want to open it, or I don't like giving gifts. It makes me feel bad. Like, I get it to a certain extent if it makes you feel bad, but get over it. Let it flow. If you like giving things to other people, then let other people give things to you. All right, rant over.
It's really interesting because as physicians, we're trained. Physicians is one of those professions where it's almost like a solo endeavor where you have to score the highest grades, get the best tests and exams. You have to get accepted. You have to go through training. So it's all this like me. It's all on me. It's all on me. Whereas in the real world, it's all about networking and relationships. The reason why physician burnout is so high is because we have this, one is perfection, but it's also a lot of us operate through guilt and shame. We're people pleasers, we give. And then when people want to reciprocate, we don't take it or refuse it. And then what happens is that we get taken advantage of in the form of all different forms. And that's why a lot of the policies in the regulations are not for physicians. They're actually for the business and corporate world. One thing is that I've learned is you have to give, but you also receive to keep that flow, because if it's just you giving, you're going to burn out very quickly.
Mm-hmm. I'm glad that you mentioned the wellness perfection. That's another just snappy thing. But I do like this conversation about generosity needing to flow. And I think it's really related to, there was another thing that I wrote down that you said about networking, which was something that I really struggled with in my early days, because I had this completely different impression of what a network was. And maybe one of these days I'll do talk skits on it or something like that. But if we behaved in person like we do online when trying to get business, could you imagine how freaking awkward it would be? I got the worst pitch the other day in my email inbox, of course. And if you are listening to this person who sent this pitch, all of my love to you, and also do better. This is no judgment, like we do the best with what we've got, right? But there's a better way to do this than to click a random blog post of mine from 2 years ago. In this particular blog post, I talked about how there was no way my guitarist in an old band of mine could mistake me for David Lee Roth. There are some big differences between me and David Lee Roth. And it was this big jokey post about a mismatch of expectations. He wanted to do like note perfect covers of Van Halen and other classic rock. I wanted to be on stage in leopard skin with a gigantic wig and blue eyeshadow and rocking out and having fun, right? So this person that sent me the pitch picked that random blog article, and I described it in such detail for a reason. They wanted me to edit that article to add in their trademark search software because they thought it would greatly benefit my audience. And I had a vivid picture of like you and I sitting at a bar having a conversation and some dude walking up and being like, "Hey, so we're over here talking about trademarks." Actually, we weren't. Thanks. Like, I've got this great thing of value to offer you. It's about trademarks and it costs me to offer it to you, but I'm willing to do it because I think it's going to deliver value to you. It's not actually going to deliver value to me because you're literally interrupting a conversation between me and my friend Chris here. Would you please kindly go away? Like, we have enough robots, we have enough systematization, we have enough shortcuts that are happening in life. I think we need more peopling, right? Don't fire off a whole bunch of a gajillion emails trying to get my attention if you can't even bother to take 5 seconds to read a post and see where you fit into it. I know that seems like a tangential rant, but it's really related to the relationships that we create. And that perception that I used to have when going into a network that it was about getting my name out to as many people as possible, passing out as many and collecting as many business cards as I went. That's such an complication with what relationship is. And the fact is, you already have a network. Are you connecting to it? Are you using it? That's the challenge.
Yeah, it's the more I study, the more relationships and the more networking are super critical skills. Could the ability to develop relationships and foster them and nurture them, provide value, and I've seen some of the most unqualified people, but with the best relationships and political skill and networking skill, get much farther ahead than the one who just buries their head in the sand and just blinders on, just solely. Everything is about relationships, social, political, networking capitals.
Oh, yeah. And you can do whatever you set your mind to do, but you first have to approach it from the belief that this thing is possible, right? You're never actually going to put yourself out there and try something new if you don't see models of this happening, or if you don't look at somebody in the public arena that you admire and go, "Hey, I think I'd like to do that too," right? You need to actually believe it in order to be able to achieve it. And then you have to put yourself out there. And how that ties into what we were saying was, you said there's somebody out there that's way less qualified than you, that's already doing the thing that you want to do. Why the hell can't you do it too? You can figure it out. You are smart and resourceful. Part of the reason that I used to struggle with accepting help was I saw myself as a burden. Now I've learned to see myself as being resourceful because I know the person that has that solution. I know the person that I can connect them to that can solve this problem. I know this person will be able to provide me with a resource within 5 seconds that I would have spent 5 days trying to find on my own and trying to remember. Let's learn to flip the script on what we can and can't do. And this ties perfectly into something that we were talking about beforehand with what society conditions us to believe. You are not a burden. You are resourceful and have more at your disposal when you think you can, but you have been trained to believe that you have to follow a certain system of steps and processes. And all of that has been designed to make you not think critically, not step out of your box, not do anything to change the status quo. And it's time that shit changed.
It all starts in childhood when you go to school and we're socially conditioned. School has its place and it's got its advantages, and There's things we need to learn. There's basic skills you have to learn, but that's just one path. And I think I was reading a statistic. It's school is good for around 10% of the population and excludes the other 90%. So if you're not at 10%, you're SOL until now we have the internet, which is one of the greatest creations ever to allow people to have that opportunity. And yeah, it's just, and the more I haven't watched TV since 2008, just because the more I realize is it's just mainstream propaganda, and it's just trying to get you to emotionally react to certain things so that you buy certain products or you endorse certain candidates. Or of course, quality shows and quality content is, I'll subscribe to that, but not something that's just you're hypnotized into believing. So,
or manufactured drama. That drives me nuts. That's another theme that has come up today on repeat, just the drama for drama's sake. What did we call it? I think we called it like toxic vulnerability. This idea that everybody has to have some sort of like ultimate low point origin story in order to be seen as a person in business. And again, don't overcomplicate this shit. If you don't have a sobbing on the floor, lost everything moment, don't make one up. Just be yourself. You don't have to manipulate this to build a connection with people. And in fact, you will build more genuine connections by not manipulating it and making it up and trying to be something other than you are. Anyway, please continue.
Yeah, I love that. Yeah, I love that. And there's so many, there's so many stories that there's, of course, the zero to hero origin story. There's so many ways influencers can grab attention now with their stories. So it doesn't have to be always this the rags to riches story or all of that. Just be authentic, be yourself, tell the truth, offer value. Like I said, it's all about flow, which we were talking about, keeping the system lubricated, decreasing points of friction, all of that.
Oh, yeah. And developing your people skills with all of this can only help the situation. You mentioned the word value, and that came up in a coaching conversation that I had with someone earlier. So I work with a lot of freelancers, creative service providers, and especially a lot of marketers who are still learning their craft and getting better at it. And one struggle that I see with a lot of early copywriters or people who are just learning email marketing in particular is they are fixated on this idea of giving value to the point that they actually miss the point of giving value. Sometimes value is selling me a solution so that I can fix my problem right now. Sometimes value is giving me more information so that I get educated on the real problem that I'm facing, right? But I told them I see this fundamental misunderstanding of marketing, especially when it's sign up to get more information on my website, and I'm going to put them through a welcome email sequence, and I'm going to give them value, and then I'm going to make an offer. And I said, if I want to change the oil in my car, do you think I want a 20-page PDF on choosing the right oil? Just change my fucking oil. I have a problem that I need to solve. The value to me is not in education about the quality of oil and which one is for my car. I trust you to make that decision for me because you're the expert. But like, you get really confused about what delivers value if you are not good at creating relationships with and talking to people. And I imagine that if you had tried to bring this full circle back to where we started with moving from the medical industry to advising people on finances, physicians on finances, that if you had tried to create a business advising people on how to do their finances in a vacuum without these people approaching to you and saying, here's my problem, and I think you're the person to solve it, do you think you could have come up with the same solution?
That's a tough call. And you probably could come up with the solution. And yeah,
I see so many folks who are in the beginning stages of their business or in their awkward growth stage of business, and they're trying to solve all the problems here in between their ears without much feedback, without talking to the people whose problems that they actually solve. And they get all discombobulated and start to make things super complicated. I'm not saying that business isn't hard and that it's not complex, but it doesn't have to be. You can let it be easy. You can let it be, I am Chris, helping these physicians make better financial choices, one person at a time, until I build the speaking career, until I come up with books, right? Because after a while of talking to people, you notice similar problems repeating themselves, similar patterns popping up. I can write this answer once in a book or give it once in a speech or in a video or a webinar and have it reach multiple people instead of having to blow my voice out saying it over and over again because I know multiple people have these questions, but guessing at the questions versus just having a conversation.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So well said.
Yeah. And I find it fascinating that we brought up school and the education system. I want to circle back to that because I don't know if you had a similar experience, but I think I was the last generation where teachers were really allowed to teach and experiment. I remember my second and third grade teachers teaching spelling with rapping songs and whatnot. And I'm sure that still exists. We've got some very creative and talented teachers now, but I had the gifted and talented program when I was younger, and we were building dioramas and creating our own plays and doing logic puzzles. And I loved that shit, and it kept me engaged. And then at one point, they shut down the gifted and talented programs for reasons. I don't know why. I was put back in the rest of the class, and I immediately became super bored because this is just memorizing facts and getting good at taking tests. And that's not me going, oh, look at how smart Angie is. I'm so freaking brilliant. That's not what I'm saying here. What I'm saying is that kind of education that, like you mentioned, only works for a small segment of the population set me up to really struggle for about 10 to 15 years after graduation, where I kept trying to find a set of steps that I could follow to get the A, to win at life. And I couldn't. And I kept thinking that I was a failure for not being able to find the steps, for not being able to get the A. And there's not really an A at life, guys. There's just life.
That brings me to the point of mentor, because mentors, you want to find somebody that's doing what you're doing or that's doing what you want to do and replicate it. For school, it's okay, somebody that's can memorize facts and take tests. But for real world, is if you want to learn how to be an entrepreneur, raise money, or be an investor, influence people, these are skills that you have to develop. These are soft skills. So it's like it takes the hard skills, but then you have to combine these different soft skills together to create what you want to do. So now we have there's so much opportunity. People ask whether they should still go to school or not. I still think you should go to school just to keep yourself out of trouble, but always have your one eye on the exit, developing other avenues, developing other interests, developing other skills that the school system does not teach.
Mm-hmm. I love that you brought that up because I went back to right around the time that you were leaving the medical profession. I went back to grad school because, again, I was not winning at life and I didn't know what to do, but I knew how to do school. So I'm going to go back to school. And you get to hear that Mia the boxer is flopping around underneath me. So if you hear weird noises in the recording, that's what's happening. But I go back to grad school and I'm like, all right, I'll figure out I'll get this grad school degree. It's called Master of Entertainment Industry Management. I will work in the entertainment industry. I will create these TV shows, not propaganda TV shows. I wanted to create good TV, Breaking Bad, and all of that jazz. And I had one class that I fucking hated. I hated it. And you will never guess what that class is. Do you want to try to guess, or do you just want me to tell you?
I would maybe something like reading or math or.
It was entrepreneurship. I had a class called entrepreneurship and I hated it at the time. And the reason I hated it was for exactly what we were talking about. I could not figure out how to get an A. And that class was actually the most similar to the real world lived experience than any other class I've ever taken in my entire life. And like I said, I've got a grad degree. That's a lot of schooling. That's a lot of my life spent in classrooms. And that was the most impactful class for me. And here's why. So like we were in these groups, the same group all year, small groups. And we were basically taught about the basics of pitching for VC funding. And we created this presentation for a hypothetical product. And the first presentation that we did, we had it reversed down to the minute. We were all anal retentive type A people. It's your turn. It's your turn. The slide is perfect. The transition is perfect. And we got like a B plus. And the group that we knew had thrown together a presentation overnight got an A. And so we're pissed. We're just righteously indignant. We worked so much harder than them and we didn't get an A. I don't understand what's happening. So the next time we decided to half-ass it and throw it together at the last minute. And we got an A. We're like, what the hell is happening here? Is she rewarding less work? No, she's not rewarding less work. What's happening when we are taking the pressure off ourselves to be perfect and to get an A is that we're not overthinking this thing to freaking death. We're letting some instinct take in. We're letting some take over. We're letting some conversation happen instead of over analyzing every single aspect of this to the point where it loses any and all personality and appeal. And it would continue. So that was like the first lesson, but I still didn't get it. I hated this freaking class. We're sitting there another night because this was an evening class. We worked like full-time internships during the day and took classes on nights and weekends. It was wild. So another evening she comes in and we're sitting in our groups already. And she literally just puts a 50 on each table and says, using this money and only this money, you have 2 weeks to make me more money. You may not put any of your own money into this pot, but you can reinvest whatever you earn back into growing the business. Go. And dismissed us. She goes, before you go, one caveat. The group that makes the most money wins all of the money. So, and thus began a wild 2 weeks of trying to figure out what problems to solve. And this is when it really started to make sense. We had figured out that our hall on campus was the only one that didn't have any kind of dining option or cafe. We had some snack machines in the basements. So me being a pastry chef's daughter, I went on a baking spree. I had snacks there every day. We had art classes. We hustled our asses off and we came in second place because we did that first presentation all over again. We overthought it. We overanalyzed it. You know what the group that won did? They took our idea and they did it better. They took their $50 to a local restaurant, bought as many meals as they could, brought that back to the hall, sold all of the meals, bought more lunches, and they rinsed and repeated that simple idea for the entire 2 weeks until they won.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah. I knew something was wrong when what's interesting is that you talk about this idea of working smarter this is talking about working smarter and more efficient. And in the real world, you don't get rewarded for who works the hardest, you results and who and money is a measure as well. And that's why it's a measurement that kind of tells you. But it's not the smartest, hardworking, those will get you to a certain point. But after that, you need another type of skill. You need what we're talking about to save yourself time. And networking is one, working smarter, working more efficiently. So all of that. The other interesting thing is I knew something was wrong when you have CEOs making 100 million and doctors struggling to make 250K or whatever. And the majority of we can talk about it, but it's like
amen. A fucking men. That should not be happening. That's my personal opinion, and I could get up on a soapbox, but please continue.
Yeah. And or just the kids, a lot of my friends, their parents were extremely rich. So whenever they got in trouble, their parents could grease the wheels and get them out of trouble. And so I knew something was wrong with the world when you could get away with bad things and a lot of things, especially 9/11, Enron, WorldCom, all these scandals. CEOs were walking away with millions for running their companies in the ground. That's a wake up call you have to think smarter. It's not just about just putting the grindstone.
Yeah, I think to me, I love to simplify complex topics, and I know it's a little bit more nuanced than that. But I've been telling people for a couple of years that I have this theory that like a good business boils down to a balance of people, process, and profit. We do need a profit. Profit is not an evil word, but when profit comes at the expense of the people, that is when it is being used to do bad in the world, do evil in the world. And I think that's what a lot of people are experiencing right now. The folks that are going, people just don't want to work. Of course they don't want to work. They're showing up to work and people are being violent at them and degrading at them, and their wages haven't increased in years. I saw recently, and I don't know how accurate it is because I'm not a math person, so fact check me if you want, and I don't care. But I basically saw this article that talks about if minimum wage had kept up with inflation, the minimum hourly rate would be something like $26 an hour. And I bet you could actually afford to eat at $26 an hour, you think? And it wouldn't take that many changes on a corporate level for most of these massive corporate organizations to make that happen for their people. And they wouldn't go bankrupt because those people would be out there spending money. Just I love how this is coming full circle. We talked about at the beginning how money needs to flow and not be hoarded It needs to be out there in the economy doing some good for people. And the way we've got it right now, it can't go anywhere. And we're all stagnating and suffering for it.
Yeah. Yeah. Again, it's all, the whole system is designed to benefit the ultra elite, and it's the rest of society has to suffer and basically the mainstream has to pay for the mistakes for the ultra wealthy, and as well as the societal entitlements and government, politicians, lawyers. I tell my future self that if I had to go back in time, I would study law or some sort of finance or some business or some sort of politics, because these are the individuals running the country or the world. So
Well, it's true. Although it is funny because not a lot of people know this, but my undergrad, I mentioned my several degrees, my undergrad was in French and political science. But the reason that I abandoned political science is you might have gathered by now, I'm a little bit direct. I'm a little bit too honest. And it's such a goofy story. I went to Model United Nations, where you basically pretend to be from the United Nations and you put forth resolutions. And it's very interesting. You meet with students from all over the world. And I took it very seriously. Again, type A, right? I'm not quite so much type A anymore, but I think it would surprise people to know that I can be like that sometimes. I represented Madagascar and I researched there. I even set up a meeting with the Madagascar representative while I was in New York. Like, I took that seriously. And so when we were proposing our resolutions, I'm trying to be Madagascar. I'm trying to come up with realistic solutions. And what pissed me off, and when I knew I was abandoning politics before I even graduated, was one of the resolutions put forward was and passed, while our common sense one was voted down. The one that passed was the G8, now the G7, was going to immediately forgive all debt for the rest of the world. Immediately, with no consequences, with no time or structures put into place. And I just went, I know I'm not a money expert, but it doesn't work that way. Like, we've got to figure something out. And I know that there's enough wealth to make this go around, right? We shouldn't be hoarding things. But I just got so disenchanted after that. I was like, no politics for me. It doesn't make sense. Listen, this was a surprising episode. Like, I had no idea that we were going to go to all of these places. This one. But I think that's what I love about having so many different people from different backgrounds on the show, that it can just be a conversation at the bar where whatever comes up. So this has been fascinating. I want people to have a chance to learn more about you, though. So if they want to get in touch, where can they find you? Where can they learn more about your business and what you're doing now?
Oh, we have a podcast. If you go to any of the major platforms, you go to Financial Freedom for Physicians podcast. You don't have to be a physician. It's just, I built that just because I'm a physician, but it's talking about business, finance, entrepreneurship, mindsets, everything we talked about.
Been on there. Yep.
Yeah, you've been on that as well. And then we're building out the YouTube channel. It's really rapidly growing. So check us out on YouTube, same name. Other than that, you can email me. Connect with me on Instagram, Twitter, TikTok, LinkedIn, Facebook. We're all over. We have a Facebook community. And just if you go to Chris at drchrislou.md-PhD.com, email me. We'll get you plugged into the ecosystem.
Awesome. I'll make sure that they have clickable links in the show notes. Thank you so much for coming on the show and for going on this grand, windy detour adventure. I loved every second of this conversation, and I think we're going to have to do a part 2 at some point. Let's get good and ranty.
I really enjoyed it. I love the just talking and just the conversation.
Oh, me too. Thank you so much. That's all for now. If you want to keep that kick-ass energy high, please take a minute to share this episode with someone that might need a high-octane dose of "you can do it." Don't forget to rate, review, and subscribe to the Permission to Kick-Ass podcast on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and wherever you stream your podcasts. I'm your host, Angie Coley, and I'm here rooting for you. Thanks for listening, and let's go kick some ass.